following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. I am back, and you are comfortably zoned with me, the Zig Zag Man, in Alameda, California, right across the bay from San Francisco, across the moat from Oakland, in the northern part of California. I'm blessed. I get to talk to the most interesting folks in the planet, really, on the face of the earth, on a regular basis. Helps me make sense of a very, very changing and crazy world. It's been crazy all my life. There was a Billy Joel line years ago that said, "These are not the best of times, but they're the only times I've ever known." I used to say that's commonplace. It's not anymore. These are really weird times. And I brought in a returning guest to help me make heads or tails of it. David Adams Jr., David C. Adams Jr., as a matter of fact. What in the hell does the C stand for crying out loud? David.
Oh, my God. I'm glad to be here. That stands for Carlton, and I know all about Carlton, your doorman, as a kid.
Yes, I remember that from, what was it, Rhoda or not?
Yeah, I think it was Rhoda, or I believe it was Rhoda downstairs, the doorman, yeah. I believe so.
One of them was an offshoot of something else. And
right.
I think Carlson was, one of those guys was a pretty good producer, and I don't know if it was Carlson that he went beyond just being a voiceover, and but that was a long time ago. You're dating yourself, young man.
Exactly.
All right. You're in Southern California, am I correct?
Yeah, still generally around the San Diego area, correct.
Okay. Now I'm up north, and the Governor Newsom, has declared that he's going to make some changes, reverse the opening of the state. Going to start in Southern California. Have you heard any finality to those talks?
No, I've heard rumors, and I didn't substantiate them in regards to ensuring that everyone should wear a mask, which to me is just pretty much common sense. But can't dispute the science, or if comparatively, I've got a son in New Zealand right now, and watch the Prime Minister implement substantial measures. And, of course, the reports last week or the week before that they had pretty much eradicated the COVID-19 altogether. We obviously they're doing something we're not doing. We're trying to haphazardly allow it to be progressed through certain states, and some states are doing certain things. Some ones they're picking and choosing instead of doing the collective things that all must be done. That's just my opinion, Ben. So
how has wearing a mask, this is more rhetorical than anything else, how has it become political? The craziness of that is really absurd to me.
Well, obviously you got that. You've got the president that's made a lot of. He's trying to go back to campaign speeches and functions and launches and of course, when you got the president refusing to wear a mask, when you've got his administration refusing to wear a mask, and you've got the governors, red governors that are pretty much they're emulating what he's doing and pretty much letting everybody run rampant and not implementing any protocols. But you see that by the refusal of states like state of Florida, state of Texas, that, they're all spiking, to say it mildly, but it's become outrageous because no one at the top is trying to enforce the correct protocols, or at least protocols that we should have, that like social distancing and whatnot, and wearing a mask, when in fact what you look for or what you're seeing is those states doing the exact opposite when it comes to cultivation of the numbers of people that are being infected. So we should be doing what the successful countries are doing, but we refuse to do that on at least a entire totality of a state basis. It's not happening. So,
we talked a little off air, and I think we're both frustrated by the fact that the leaders, and I put that in quotes, and the Trump in particular. You're a football guy. I use the expression "call an audible" nowadays. He will never admit to being wrong, even when he's not wrong, and he's off track, as we all do, as we all make decisions, and we have to go back on them and say, whoops, kind of messed up on that one, or, maybe I should have gone left, maybe I should have deked, or whatever. He won't do that, and that's what's most frustrating. I think you'll agree if you're still there.
Oh, yeah, I'm still here, if you can hear me. Okay, so,
all right.
It's bad. That's all that, like you said, I was just reflecting about when you talk about retracting a mistake and whatnot, and then he's adamant not to follow the scientists and then muzzling the scientists when there's factual information out there or quantitative information, such as bastardizing the premises when it came to injecting Clorox into your body or, sticking a flashlight up your derriere. That's horrific. But he didn't even retract themselves. But
and you could imagine his ideas that never come to light. No pun intended on that one. But imagine what he talks about when the cameras are off. If this is what we hear, it's very, very scary. Does it occur to you, like it does me, that we need Amendment 25 and that there may be, where they come in and say, Mr. President, this is crazy. You're not doing it anymore. We're going to have to take away your Sharpie and, But your golf game is really improved. There's 127,000 people are dead, but I must say, boy, what a short game you've got. Congratulations, sir. I know you like being called sir too. That's important to him. It's a crazy world. How are you investing? What changes in your life? I want to catch up with you a little bit. You're into finance. You're a former football player. You played, and I replayed an interview that you and I did. You played with some of the greatest running backs of USC history. I have so many questions to ask you about these guys. Tell me about Marcus.
Okay. There was Charles White and Marcus Allen were my teammates, and that both won the Heisman. Charles won it the first year I was there in 1979, and I really had no clue coming from England. I was, raised on a military basis around the world, and I literally got dropped off the pond from England, as we called it, and dropped in the heart of L.A., which is a major transition. But one of the coolest guys I met was Charles, and then, of course, my roommate throughout all of the training camps and hell weeks and all that stuff was Marcus Allen. So and at the time we were both fullbacks. So but go ahead.
Okay. Well, I guess what I'd like to know about Marcus was what happened after USC with the Raiders. Marcus Allen, for those we're old-timers just by the nature of the beast when we talk about this. For you young sportsmen, he glided. He had this way of running that was he's like the guy with Detroit. His name slips my mind.
Barry Sanders?
Did you notice a similarity in their style?
Pretty much, because if they were, like I said, I guess gliding is a good description of it, because Marcus did not play as style was to not collide or run somebody over. He tried to avoid being hit while still trying to progress up the field. So you never got a solid hit on him. And I noticed, as far as equipment and gear, what we would be wearing comparatively as running backs, he always trimmed his equipment down a little bit so he could minimize the amount of weight that he was carrying in order to make him faster. So, but I'd see him do things, and I'd seen him play and practice without a mouthpiece at USC. So, but he just never, the things that a normal guy running the ball would do as far as getting hit or delivering a hit, just did not. He would have the skill set of avoiding that. So, and that's what created that aura, that gliding style that he had, and it continued throughout his career. So, very slick guy. Barry was a little bit. I think he cut a lot. He accentuated his cuts a lot more than Marcus. Whereas Marcus, you might try like a linebacker or someone trying to barrel down and hit him. He just sort of like would allow it to glance off. If the pressure was applied to him, he'd sort of glide off, not necessarily spin, but you never got a solid hit on the guy. I think that's what prolonged his career.
Okay. Do you have any idea what happened with the Raiders? And
oh my God. I know I laugh because I know how much you love the Raiders, but go ahead.
Well, I grew up a Jet fan, but I lived in Northern California most of my adult life, and I have it's almost like a bittersweet moments. I guess that's the word for it with the Raiders. I became very friendly with Ben Davidson, and he owned a bar in the little town that I had an insurance agency in the 70s. And I'd go in, this 24-year-old skinny kid, big Joe Namath fan, and he had this mural of himself just knocking Joe Namath into the second deck, just big old mural as you walked in the bar, and I got to know him a little bit, and he says, you know what? He says, that's what I'll do to you if you don't pay your bar tab.
Oh, yeah, right.
That's what he looked at me. I said, there's very little chance that I'm going to miss a payment on my bar tab, Mr. Davidson. And he laughed, Jew boy, here you go, fellow Jew boy.
Right.
He was quite a guy. Very few people remember that Ben Davidson was originally a New York Giant. He was cut early in his career as a rookie by the Giants. But rest in peace, Ben. He was also, Ben Davidson, also a star on the ill-fated television show Jim Bouton, Ball 4. He played a role on that show as my sports mind goes completely berserk talking to David Adams on the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. I am Ralph Tycho, the Zig Zag Man, catching up with an old buddy who's a Facebook friend who's politically simpatico with my belief system. And my belief system is that things are so fucked up right now, we can't stand it anymore. Well, we complain about our stuff on being Facebook friends is that I like your dribble and you like my dribble. That's it. So what I'd like to get is play Nostradamus with me. How is this going to turn out? Is Trump simply going to be defeated by Biden? Does Biden have it together to go through an entire campaign and not stumble and fumble and rumble. That's my Keith Jackson. What do you think?
Personally, just watching the temperament of everything and the course of everything, and then, of course, every day that's something new that we're finding out more, and that maybe he deflected or didn't respond to something but was briefed on something such as the whole Russian contracted hits that they engaged with the Afghans. Things like that, that they're just going to simply, because we've gotten to a point now in this country that everything has become solely deflected to such extremes that regardless of what proof and evidence that's displayed out there, a third of the country at least is convinced that whatever he says, that anything against anti-Trump is fake news. And I guess now one of the operative terms that they have is, as far as the media, as far as the mainstream media, I guess is the coin phrase. So anything that actually is emulated by factual and quantitative information issued by those particular media outlets, they automatically dispute as if it's wrong or non-factual, which is ludicrous. So I think it's going to be more of the same. There's no real leader, like you mentioned, to ensure that the safety of the country and the protocols that need to be in place like every other country in regards to this COVID-19 virus. And I just believe that people are just going to continue these denials regardless of what spikes. And, there's I think 30 out of 50 states are actually on fire right now due to relaxing the protocols, and especially in those areas where you had red governors, that until we get down, it's going to come down to the election, because I don't believe there's any adults left in the room to save the country. So we're going to have to literally take this guy out and then, of course, implement measures that are for the entire country in order for us to get back to safe measures or be able to help eradicate or at least minimize the expansion of this virus throughout this country. Nothing else is going to change. Nothing is going to change. It's just my opinion, but I'm so sick of everybody deflecting. If you notice, even on like a Twitter account, you're watching Trump, he's tweeting about every 3 to 4 minutes, but he never addresses the loss of life in this country, which is somewhere around 100, is approaching, if it hasn't already surpassed it, about 130,000 deaths. He has not addressed anything.
There's no empathy with the man.
None whatsoever. He has to be removed. And we, don't even need to get anything else. I mean, if you reverse the roles to any other president, that if they were in charge, whether they were red or blue, and they had causes them deliberately deflected, buried the information when it came to the threats of the virus, and when he had access to the information, and was very indecisive because, all he does is bloviate nonsense, let alone when you add in other elements of things that, such as this, with the Russian contracts, with the Afghans not doing anything, not even coming out and saying, calling Putin on his nonsense and saying, look, this is not on my watch. He didn't take a stand. Freaking you talk about, the gross racial disparities. He's done nothing other than roll out, cut and paste statements, videos of people claiming white power. I mean, the guy does everything the exact opposite of you would expect for a person that wanted to imply, that he has everything.
Bring the country, but you want to bring the country together. That's all. In all the spy novels I've ever read, and nothing has come close in terms of what this guy is doing, but there's always the CIA that comes in and says, wait a second, this is getting out of hand. Mm-hmm. We have to give this guy an injection. That's
go ahead. I'll let you talk. Go ahead.
Just take him out the back way. That's all. Nobody has stepped up in any way. But you know what gives me a little hope is that in the last few days, people like McConnell, Pence even, they've been saying, wear your mask, for Christ's sake. That's all. Yeah. Be a human being and wear your mask. He hasn't responded to that. He doesn't realize that if he came out with a mask with the presidential seal on it and said, I was wrong, you need to wear a mask. What we're doing isn't working. Wear a mask. He could be reelected. With that in mind, he won't come out and say any of those things. He's going to continue to take him. He's incapable of going back on whatever it is. He can say anything, and he'll back it up to the hilt. Let me ask you a hypothetical question. Say that he disappeared and that the Republicans had to come up with someone to run against Biden, and that someone was Romney. Who would you vote for? I'm a Democrat. I know you're a Democrat. But that aside, we're looking for leadership in this country. Would you vote for Romney or Biden?
Well, to me, it would still have to come down to Republican versus Democratic general policies of what I stand and don't stand for. And I think one of the most heinous crimes that Trump did was when the Tax Act of 2016, when he implemented that, stole $1.5 trillion from the feds and then from our government via the revenue stream, and then allocate it to the elite 1% who are already extremely excessively and ludicrously wealthy. And then, of course, the burden was left for the other, I'd say, 80 to 90% of the general population to make up for. Because if you noticed, they promised, I think, a 4% to 5% economic annual rate after that. They never approached that. They even had, I guess, one of the architects of the 2016 Tax Act within the Republican administration came out and publicly admitted we were blowing smoke. None of these numbers that we projected occurred or were ever going to occur. Then you have the fact that Mitch McConnell railroaded the vote without allowing the Democrats to even see the full party, and then the package until they had literally what was it, 1 or 2 hours to speed read through what was 5,000 pages of documentation. You also had the fact that comparatively to the Tax Act of 1986 by Ronald Reagan, that when that went through, they allowed for approximately 450 different professionals and discussions, open forums, on discuss the potential ramifications of the Tax Act before they implemented them. So you had full disclosure in 86, and you had absolutely zero representation or disclosure in the one for 2016. And then ultimately the coup de grace being that after they passed the bloody thing, they realized after the first year that they were going to be in error to the actual any of the projections they had coming to fruition, and the funds coming back. They claimed there was going to be that mythical trickle down that it didn't work in '86, and it certainly wasn't working in 2016.
Right.
Because there was, and then it was, epitomized in my particular field, because in the stock market, you had to jump in the stock market, but that's because the large corporations that received those massive corporate tax cuts did not use the money as they were supposed to in order to increase the salaries of the middle and lower employees on their payroll. That flatlined while their income dramatically increased, and then they just simply took the profits and reinvested back into their own stocks, which about 10 years before that or 5 years before that was illegal because you're allowed to directly influence the market. So they took all of the profits, jammed it in their stocks, which created that false, grossly inflated market because they had nothing to lose. They just took it and went from point A to point B. So in the end, the money didn't do what it was supposed to. There were no trickle downs. There was no increase in income, which would help boost the economy by putting money back into the market. What they did was, in fact, they realized that they had to go in. That's when they started talking about taxing our paid-in Social Security and Medicaid. So that was what's going to use to, which is an entirely separate bucket. It's not part of the Fed revenue stream in which your taxes go in and out of. So it was a hot mess, and that's the one thing I want to see get changed dramatically, and that is not something I believe that Romney would be capable of as a Republican. He would not do that or change that. I think it's going to take a Democrat to do that, and it's not, and he doesn't have the vested interests of those other parties. He's doing what he was committed to do, which will help the common man, the average man, to get back, or at least get something back, instead of at least not stealing it and handing it to the elite 1%, which is asinine.
David, here's my gripe with Biden. Biden is in bed with the big pharmaceutical companies, and Biden does not want fair wages. I mean, not that he doesn't want it, but he's not actually advocating fair wages for the working man. And I think, Johnny Lunchbucket's out there every day is concerned about fair health care at health care at a reasonable price without deductibles making people bankrupt if they get a major disease, and be able to raise your family and buy a house maybe, and certainly rent an apartment on your wages, one's wages. And I think I don't think Biden's going to help in the long term that way. Am I far off base?
As far as that question, I think, and I think that maybe that's where a vice president or certain people within Congress, if we take the Senate back and maintain the House, which was crucial here. I think that there may be other measures, because he did promise that we've got to reinstitute the checks and balances and recognize the three branches of the government like it's supposed to be. And I think that there's going to be, as long as we do all of it, and I think that the ticket will ultimately end up all blue for the three branches, as long as there's no interference in the voting. I think that those valid issues can be directed, whether it's through Schumer or whether it's through Pelosi. Something will be brought up that will maintain that has to be addressed. I think they can force him to be accountable in those areas. That's just my personal opinion. But then again, you've got a guy that's in office right now that did none of that, and I'm still, if we do hand it back over to yet another, if say Romney would end up, I don't think they're going to allow for the reincorporation of the Constitution for the three branches of government to be recognized either. I just think it's going to be more of the same. So I much prefer to take the chance of dealing with Biden. Not that there's any perfect scenario. I don't believe any person that's been president is a saint or ever will be. But I think that with open disclosures and valid checks, that he'd have to adhere to something, that especially if something like that is brought up by the House and Senate. Okay.
David, what are you telling your clients in terms of investment dollars, in terms of the future?
I've actually been inundated and overwhelmed with a tremendous amount of client activity. A lot of it comes from my business website, which is LinkedIn, and just for a lot of companies that maybe are more of a captive audience. I just got recertified into what are called Reg A offerings. It's similar to an IPO, but it's a much more faster process. It's a much less costly process, and it helps companies to gain leverage in the market on an actual exchange. And then, of course, if they're according to their business plans, they can execute and implement plans much more quickly. So we've added that to our repertoire over at Southern Trust Securities. But while we're waiting for, we're incubating an opportunity for certificate clearing again, which is pretty much old school. It's been the staple of the business, but there were so many regulations we had to get compliantly creative to reorganize that. So that's about done. But in the meantime, our firm is offering Reg A's, and I've even got an old teammate of mine that runs a very successful medical institute, and he played football at SC. That he's a big name. Don't want to mention him yet, but we're potentially engaging and going to merge one of our public entities into his company. So because he's been asking about going public, but this is a much expeditious way to do it. And if that is disclosed, I'll make sure and send you a link to it. So that's a project that I've taken on to help me, which will help him, which will ultimately help with the firm and marketing and exposure and so on and so forth. So,
David, how could our audience get in touch with you specifically? A website and a phone number.
Okay, well, they can reach me at my corporate numbers, area code 619-399-3353. My corporate email address is dadams, D-A-D-A-M-S, at samharrycat.com. So it's dadams at stshc.com. So if they have any questions, they can reach out to me there. We do certificate clearing. We do Reg A filings to help companies get exposure, become public, or raise capital raises. And, of course, we work within Reg A Tier 1, which is up to $20 million, and then Tier 2, which is up to $50 million. We do what's called a testing the waters to system, which is a form of legal marketing. That about the only legal marketing you can do in comparison to what we call a red herring that allows us to receive some sort of non-committal indications of interest from people that might want to find out more about some of these investment opportunities. And then we still do the same old investment advisory services we have available, setting up 401ks and option plans, that sort of thing. So we run as a fairly well diversified market there, and opportunities for the clients, and anything in between. If it's something we don't know, we've got a referral basis. As I said, I've been in the industry for about 34 years. So if I don't, it's sort of like, what is that, 7 steps to Kevin Bacon, they call it. So if I don't know it, I definitely can reach out to one person or so and find out and introduce them to whoever they need to get to accomplish a certain goal. And that's a free service. So happy to hear from them about it. Yeah.
Will you keep coming back? That's all I want to hear.
Well, I appreciate it as long as you enjoy having me. I enjoy talking to you, whether it's on here or on Facebook. You keep me going, so I highly appreciate the opportunities. So
beautiful, and me the same for you. We belong to a mutual admiration society. My David and me. Be good, my friend. Stay healthy and keep hunkered down and safe.
Thank you. You too. All right, take care.
All right. Thank you for listening, everybody. Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. I'm Ralph Tycho, the Zig Zag Man. David C. Adams Jr. was my guest. Adios.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned Network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.